Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Your Mark on the World show. I'm your host, Devin Thorpe, and we're producing this episode for GoodCrowd.info, and today we're talking to our sponsors at Caring Crowd, including Derek Fetzer, who's the director of Caring Crowd, and we're joined today by Robyn Shumer. She's the director of Bridges in the Learning and Development Department there at Johnson & Johnson. We're talking about eating disorders today, so stick around. This is going to be a very fascinating episode.
Welcome to Your Mark on the World, bringing you another change maker with champion of social good, Devin D. Thorpe.
This episode is made possible via the support of our sponsors, including Johnson & Johnson's Caring Crowd. Robyn, Derek, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We're thrilled to have you. Of course, Derek, happy to have you back. Robyn, we're excited to meet you, and we're grateful for the great work you're doing. You've just completed a successful crowdfunding campaign on Caring Crowd. Tell us a little bit about that whole experience for you.
Sure. So it was a really great experience. It was a very hard thing to do, but I think that having an eating disorder and not being able to get treatment is really hard. And so the goal was to raise $10,000 for a nonprofit called Project Heal that provides grant funding to people with eating disorders that can't afford treatment. And we exceeded our fundraising goal and came in at 106% and raised $10,541. So we will be providing treatment for 2 people to get treatment for their eating disorders.
Wow, that's amazing. So, people understand so little about eating disorders. Can you give us a little bit more background about the problems they cause and what's involved?
Yeah, it's a really great question. So, with anorexia, there are complications with people's hearts that aren't really well known. You can really affect your metabolism for the rest of your life. With bulimia, where people are making themselves purge, you can really affect your esophagus and your heart. With binge eating disorder or obesity, there's a lot of health consequences, a lot of deleterious consequences. And for all of them, I think that there's a stigma. And it really affects, socializing and your self-esteem. And to put this into a greater perspective, Devin, 1 person in the U.S. dies every 62 minutes as the result of an eating disorder. So that's pretty impressive.
It's horrible. It's horrible. The mortality rate, is this correct? The mortality rate for eating disorders is higher than for any other mental health condition. Is that true? Mm-hmm. Well, it's just so sad, and we just don't fully appreciate it. I don't think we talk about it in the right terms often enough. Robyn, why was this cause important to you? Where did your interest in this come from?
So I went on my first diet when I was 8 years old. And at 9, I was praying to God that I didn't weigh in the 40s when I would go for my annual physical at my pediatrician. And I was hospitalized for anorexia for 3.5 months when I was 12. And, I still suffer with some component of body dysmorphia and, eating issues every day. And I'm a lot older than 12 now. And I feel like, it's absolutely horrible. And there was an announcement that came out recently that Weight Watchers is going to provide free memberships for teenagers. I just found out about that today, and it's deplorable. And so, anything I can do to help prevent or treat, I feel like it's what I need to do.
Did you have people over the years, especially when you were a child, suffering from this most acutely? Did people just tell you, just eat more?
Just eat, and my parents would say to me, like, look at us, you're never going to be fat. But, when you're a kid growing up and you're bombarded with these images about what you should look like, and there's just this complete ridiculous focus on how you look. You know, whatever anybody says goes in one ear and out the other.
Yeah. So is anorexia then caused, at least in part, by the societal images that just warp our brains? Is that the trigger for it, or is there a genetic cause or other factors that weigh in? How does this work?
Good question. You know, I think it's complicated, and I think that it's the messages that we get from the media. I think that there is an element of brain chemistry. I think that family dynamics can play a role, and the type of environment that you grow up in. And, you know, I remember, Devin, as a kid saying to my therapist, like, well, why did I choose anorexia? Like, I'm 11 years old. The only other anorexic I'd ever heard of was Karen Carpenter.
Yeah.
Why anorexia? And my therapist said, you know, for some people it's anorexia. For some people it's drugs. Like, just the way that you're wired, you know, determines what your vice will be.
Yeah.
You think it was more a case of nature or development in your case?
You know, it's funny. My mother just asked me last weekend, do you still blame me for your eating disorder? And I said, I think it's a complication of the time I grew up and family dynamics.
Yeah.
And I was an athlete growing up. I was a gymnast. So, you know, that didn't help.
Right.
So you've been very successful with the crowdfunding, Robyn. What do you think you did that made it work?
So, great question again. At first, I didn't make it personal. I just launched my campaign and I asked people to donate. And when the donors were not coming as quickly as I hoped, under the guidance of Derek and his team, I made it personal. And I updated all of my outreach to say, because of my history with an eating disorder, this is so important to me. Can you help me? And once I made it personal and I was able to connect emotionally with people, you know, the money just came in. And I worked with two other women, Geraldine Giorgio and Stacey Turney, also from J&J, and we all, you know, made that change to our messaging to people and really opened up and exposed ourselves. So I think making it personal and letting people know why this matters is effective.
And I think that was great in driving the awareness, right? I mean, the condition, and you know, there's a lot of points that you brought out through your campaign, and as you talked to so many donors and pledgers, that it really brought to the forefront for a lot of us that, you know, I was unaware of a lot of the things that you were talking about.
Good.
What were some of the things, Derek, that you saw Robyn do that made her campaign successful that you would want other crowdfunders, especially those on Caring Crowd, to know?
So I think it's reaching out and expressing why this is important to you. And with that, it will resonate, right? That it's not cooked up in some academic center, right? It's really tangible. It's local communities. This matters to me because I'm involved in this way. And when you communicate that, I think you do connect to people. And Robyn did a fabulous job of connecting to many people, expressing that idea and getting their support.
Fascinating insights. It's important. What a great takeaway to think about understanding Robyn's connection to this problem allowed donors to open up their wallets in a way that they didn't without understanding her personal connection to it. It's just a really powerful takeaway from our conversation today. Robyn, what would you say to your young self in the midst of your anorexia? What counsel would you give yourself today, looking back, knowing all you know now?
Gosh. I might cry. Great question. I think, and I have a 3-year-old daughter, and, you know, I think the advice that I would give to myself is what my hope is for her is to focus on your brains and your heart. And, you know, that's really what matters. And, you know, your size doesn't matter, the numbers on the scale, none of that matters. What matters is that try your hardest and that you are a good person with a good heart.
What would you say to parents of a 9-year-old anorexic little girl?
I would say that the treatment needs to be for the whole family. My treatment, I was what's called the identified patient. So I was the one that had the physical symptoms. And so I received the treatment. And it's a family problem. And so I would tell any parent of a kid with an eating disorder or drug addiction or whatever their ism is that it needs to be family-centered therapy. You could ship me off to this hospital for 3.5 months and then I come home and it's like the same system. You know, nobody else changed. So I think treating the whole family is really important.
I think that's powerful insight, powerful insight. Well, as you think about your experience with crowdfunding, what's been the most important lesson you've learned, Robyn?
You know, there are a lot of people have a lot of competing demands in terms of their finances and where they spend their money. So really making it compelling and connecting emotionally with people, you know, right out of the gate, I think is really important. And, you know, let people know why you're doing this in the first sentence or the first few seconds of your conversation. People get scrolling fatigue, you know, when they're reading emails on their phone. So put the most important message up front and let them really know why it matters.
Great insights. Derek, you've been at this for a while now. What's the most important lesson you've learned as you've watched crowdfunders at work?
Well, I think there's the aspect that we're touching on really is it's people connecting with people. And the crowdfunding platform is an enabler, but it's really just the tip of the iceberg. It's really about the relationships. The platform that we provide, which is free for nonprofits to use, allows people to not have to actually worry about the technology and concentrate on the actual subject that matters, right? Like in Robyn's case, let her focus on this is the subject that matters. It's matter to me. It matters to me. It matters to the community. And let's talk about that, right? And we can focus less on the technology and the platform, right? So I think that's what it brings.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, fantastic.
Yeah.
Robyn, what is your superpower?
My superpower. Derek, what is my superpower?
Well, it's something to do with the voice and the communication.
Voice and communication. You know, I like to listen and I like to make people feel heard and feel important, and I like people to leave an encounter with me feeling better than they did before. So if you can come up with one word to describe that, let me know. I can't.
The empath. There you go.
The empath. There we go. Now, Derek, what's your superpower?
I just keep going and going and going and going.
Endless energy.
Well, perseverance, I guess.
Yeah. Boy, I can relate to that a little bit. Sometimes I wonder if it's more of a blessing or a curse, but yeah. I'm sure you and your family would argue about whether that persistence is always good or bad.
Well, yeah, I think our whole family is.
Well, that's good.
I'm very proud of them for that too.
Right.
Well, Robyn, can you tell people how they can learn more about, is it Project Heal? Am I getting that right?
Yeah,
Tell
Project
people
Heal.
how they can learn more about Project Heal.
Yeah, so just go to their website, projectheal.org, I believe is the URL, or just Google Project Heal. And all the information is there. And the co-founders are 2 young women who met while they were inpatient for their own eating disorders. And, you know, there's a myriad of services that they provide. They provide support groups. They provide mentors. They provide, you know, literature, and then the grants for people that can't afford treatment. And then they have local chapters all around the country as well. So if somebody wanted to become involved in one of those chapters, they could as well. It's really, they're doing really pioneering work.
That's great. That's great. Well, Derek, tell us now how people can learn more about Caring Crowd and run a campaign on the site.
Very easy. Just go to www.caringcrowd.org. and everything that you need to know is there. You want to submit a project, go to the top of the page, create a project, and if not, scroll down to the bottom, contact us. It'll send an email to us and we can start a conversation.
Fantastic. Well, I want to thank both of you for the time you spent with us today and wish you every success in the great work that you're doing.
Thank you, Devin, and thank you for your work.
Be well.
Let's do some good.
At Caring Crowd, we believe everyone has the power to make a difference. Through our crowdfunding platform for community health, we empower passionate people to drive real change. Whether you work for a nonprofit organization, volunteer, or want to get involved for the first time, you can post a campaign on Caring Crowd. Join us, because caring is where change begins.
Thank you for listening. This podcast is available at youtube.com/Devin Thorpe. Subscribe to this podcast on Stitcher or iTunes by searching for Your Mark on the World. Every weekday, Devin hosts a CEO, celebrity, entrepreneur, or other changemaker here on the Your Mark on the World show to inspire and prepare you to make your mark. Devin is a champion of social good, writing about, advocating for, and advising people who are doing good. He is a Forbes contributor who is a recognized thought leader in social entrepreneurship, impact investing, and crowdfunding. To book Devin as a speaker, visit devinthorpe.com.